Governor of California Gavin Newsom and the California Legislature did a big thing today. Here is Chris Hayes to talk about it on All In with Chris Hayes.
Good evening. For a special hour of All In, I'm Chris Hayes. The redistricting arms race is here. Today, California lawmakers passed the Election Rigging Response Act, a law that would give the state's voters a chance to approve a new congressional map this November that could possibly lead to Democrats netting more seats in next year's midterm elections. Now, it comes not out of the blue, but rather as a response to Texas Republicans, a day after they pushed a bill through their legislature to redraw that state's congressional districts to make them even redder. The state Senate set to vote on that plan soon. Governor Greg Abbott is expected to sign it within days. A couple hours ago, California Governor Gavin Newsom confirmed that the Texas plan and the man who asked for it, Donald Trump, are the reason his state is responding.
We got here because the President of the United States is one of the most unpopular presidents in U.S. history. We got here because he recognizes that he will lose the election. Congress will go back into the hands of the Democratic Party next November. He recognized that, and that's why he made a phone call to Greg Abbott asking for 5 seats.
Now, none of this is politics as usual. We're sort of off the frontier here. We haven't quite ever seen anything like this. It could be easy to lose sight of what it all means. It's all happening because, well, as Gavin Newsom said, Donald Trump and Republicans are intent on holding on to their ruling majority in Washington, no matter what voters have to say about it in 2026. You have to remember the last 3 presidents, Obama and Biden and Trump in his first term, all saw their party lose control of the House in their first midterm elections. It's been one of the more stable facts of American democracy. In midterms, public sentiment tends to go against the party in power. Right now, Republicans hold one of the slimmest House majorities in history and have given Trump everything he has demanded. Everything. They've been a rubber stamp on his attempts to essentially rule like a dictator. And he doesn't want to lose that power. He can't lose that power in some ways. And so he's going to do everything he can to make sure Republicans do not lose the House, whether or not those methods are in line with the American constitutional order. And that includes pushing red states to rig their maps to take away Democratic-leaning districts. It's plainly a desperate attempt to subvert the will of an American voting public that is already reacting strongly against Donald Trump, who, again, as Governor Newsom said, whose approval numbers are at their lowest point in this term. So he's just trying to change the rules of the game, letting the politicians choose their voters instead of the other way around. And there's no, pretense here, and there's no pretext, there's no gaslighting, everyone's being very clear about it. Here was the Texas legislator who introduced the gerrymandering bill on Wednesday.
The underlying goal of this plan is straightforward. Improve Republican political performance. Each of these newly drawn districts now trend Republican in political performance. While there's no guarantee of an electorate success, Republicans will now have an opportunity to potentially win these districts. The 5 new...
It's kind of astonishing, right, to listen to him say that?
Yeah.
Right? He's not saying this will be good for the citizens of Texas. He's not saying this will be good for the voters that put me in office. No, he's just saying it'll be good for our party. I mean, I guess he's being honest about their thievery. Here's what this means in real terms. Here's the balance of power in Congress right now. Republicans came in with a 5-seat majority, 220 to 215. There have been some deaths and there's been some resignations, but all have happened in fairly safe partisan seats. So if nothing else changed, all Democrats need to do to retake the House would be to pick up a net total of 3 Republican seats, right? That would give them 218 to 217. So here's how things change under the Texas Republican plan. That plan basically flips 5 Democratic-held districts into Republican-leaning ones, meaning Democrats would start midterms with a 15-seat deficit to make up. That's a big difference. That's 3 times what they currently face.
Huge.
But of course, now California has started their redistricting process in response to Texas. There are a number of steps involved, right? They have to be ratified by the voters. But were it to move forward, that process is expected to create a map that would probably net Democrats 5 more seats in the Golden State. So if Texas and California both succeed in redistricting, they basically would cancel each other out. That's the idea, leaving the balance of power in Congress where it is today. A 5-seat Republican advantage. But here's the thing, Republicans, and this is being directed by Donald Trump, was putting tremendous pressure on state Republicans across the country. They're not stopping in Texas. They are looking to crack and pack blue districts in other states, particularly ones represented by Black and Latino members. They're looking at Florida, Missouri, Indiana, Ohio. Now those are already solidly red states, and they already have big Republican majorities. So even extreme gerrymandering would only net them a few more seats in each state, as you can see on the map there. But it does add up pretty quickly. In fact, if all 5 of those states were to maximize their districts for Republican gains, Trump's party would start out next year's midterms with a 21-seat advantage. That's quadruple their current majority. Again, this has nothing to do with the voters, has nothing to do with whether people like what Congress is doing. No, this is just rigging the rules.
Yep.
And that margin we're showing you on the screen, that is even with California adding 5 seats for Democrats. So now other Democratic states are talking about responding in kind. Right? What can they do? But it's all just talk at this moment. New York might be able to add 3 seats to the Democrats' advantage there, but under the state's constitution, they cannot get it done before next year's midterms because they, like California, actually put in a kind of nonpartisan mechanism for this. But you can see from the math, right? What California is doing is so important because it's, at this point, it's the most straightforward, lawful means Democrats have at their disposal to blunt this concerted attempt by Trump and Republicans nationwide to take as many American voters out of the next election as possible. This fight is just beginning. The California Democrats are showing their colleagues what sort of action is going to be needed to meet the moment. Katie Porter served as a Democratic congresswoman in California for 6 years. She's now running for the governor of California, and she joins me now. I think I know where you stand on this, Congresswoman, but what do you think of this plan?
This is a plan that is a reaction to the crisis of our democracy, a crisis created by Donald Trump, a crisis deepened by Texas Republicans who are doing his bidding. And so California is doing what Americans want it to do, which is to fight back. 2026, the midterms, are our best opportunity to check Donald Trump's abuses of power. I ran for Congress in 2018 and won, and went to Washington to do exactly that during Trump's first term. And he lost tons of seats in that Congress.
Yep.
We were a huge class of Democrats. He's already seen this play and he didn't like it. So now he is simply trying to guarantee a different show. He's trying to manipulate the process. So what California is doing here is saying to our own electorate, what do you want to do about this? This is the most democratic process here in California in the sense that it's going to be up to voters to decide. It's a big contrast to Texas, where a gerrymandered state legislature went and announced and did so even more gerrymandering.
Yeah, that I do think that's relevant, and of course, the fact that there's a ballot initiative here means, again, it will have to be sort of democratically ratified. Kevin McCarthy, who used to serve in the House alongside you in the same congressional delegation, is going to try to raise $100 million for an opposition campaign. He's been sort of working behind the scenes. Are you confident that the Texas Republicans didn't have to sell this to their voters? They just took it. You're going to have to sell it to the people of California. Are you confident that you can?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people will give Kevin money, and I'm sure at the end of the day, it will be for naught. The reason I say that is in my campaign for governor, I have been traveling all over the state. And what I hear over and over again, including from folks who are not Democrats, people who are independents, no party preference, some of them are registered Republicans, are saying Trump is attacking California. Trump is trying to cheat. And we need to take action to stop his cheating. And that's the right way to think about this. This is not sort of tit for tat. This is actually one entity that's cheating Trump and Texas Republicans, and the other that's simply trying to halt that and allow the elections to go forward across the country so that there's a real choice for the American people here about who they want to lead their Congress. And let me tell you, I have not had a single Californian tell me that they are a big fan of Trump's attacks on Medi-Cal, his cutting research funding at our universities, his tariffs that are driving up prices right as people are doing back to school shopping. He's got to do this because he doesn't have what you're supposed to have to win, which is good ideas to bring down costs for the American people.
when you won that first race, it was in a swing district. I remember it took a while to count the votes, as can often happen in those California races, and you represented that swing district. And one of the things I'm thinking about here, just in the sort of broader context of what has been kind of uncorked by Trump and the Republican Party, is we have seen a decline of swing seats over time. That's been a sort of structural factor. And I wonder, as someone who represented one of those seats, like those are the seats that end up being the kind of thermostatic indicator of where the American public is, how important those seats are to the broader democratic responsiveness of American politics.
I think every elected official, regardless of whether they're in a deep blue or deep red area, should be representing and listening to all of their constituents. So if you're in an area that's 80% Democrat and 20% Republican, you are still those 20% Republicans' only voice. And so you really, I always thought this children can't vote, but I always went to Washington in part thinking about what would be good for children. It's exactly the same thing. So I think this is a genuine problem across our politics right now, which is that people want to see leaders who are thinking about what is best for families. They are thinking about how to bring down costs. They understand what it's like to push a grocery cart and have to take items out of it because you can't afford them. What it's like to worry if your kid is going to be able to still live in the same state or area that you did. And so that's what people want to see. And those are not Democrat problems or Republican problems. Those are American problems. So I will say the new district that's being proposed for the area I used to represent looks an awful lot like the district I used to represent. In 2022, after the census and redistricting, I got some other communities, but this map is pretty familiar to a lot of Californians.
Yeah, you don't think this is like, I mean, even though obviously the map is done in this specific way, I was looking at the map today too, it does not seem like an egregious or shocking upsetting of the apple cart for California.
Well, I mean, I just encourage anyone to go take a look at the Texas map and compare it side by side. And so there really was an effort here, clearly, to try to keep similar communities together. Right. So as I said, in 2018, I represented two cities, Tustin and Irvine. In 2022, after redistricting, those two cities were pulled apart. Now they're put back together. So it's rich for folks like Kevin McCarthy to complain about partisan redistricting when in 2018, 2019, and 2020, when we voted on the H.R. 1, the For the People Act, which would have put independent redistricting commissions in every single state, who led the opposition to that? Kevin McCarthy. Now he wants to act like he's some champion for best democratic practices. Spare me.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Representative Isaac Bryan, who was on in the previous hour, made the same point about the state Republicans in both the state assembly and state house, that there's been this sort of, there's been this push, and it's mostly been Democrats and liberals and good government types that have pushed for these independent state commissions. So you've seen Democratic states pushing this. Republicans have had no interest in it, and now you're in this situation where they've got to sort of scramble back uphill against these laws they put in place in order to just get back to par and reassert some sort of even playing field heading into the midterms.
That's right. I do think California's history here, though, is really instructive and maybe encouraging. And I think we all could use a little encouragement right now that we can actually see people from both sides of the aisle, at least sometimes, come together with good ideas. The Independent Redistricting Commission in California was put in place by Governor Schwarzenegger. Yep. And it has been the law under Jerry Brown then and under Gavin Newsom. And it will be the law, by the way, under the next governor, which I very much hope to be. But the reason is this is a temporary stopgap measure in California to address the fact that we are in unprecedented, uncharted times. I mean, you heard what the Texas legislature said. They said, we are doing this to win seats for Republicans. They're not doing it for the people of Texas. They're not doing it to engage more voters. They're doing it simply to tilt the playing field. So California is going to revert back to its independent redistricting commission, and I think that's really important. I think that'll be important to voters who are going to consider this in November.
Right, that's a great point. This is structured as essentially a one-off departure that then goes back to the status quo ante after this. Katie Porter, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Absolutely.
Coming up, Donald Trump's Justice Department is targeting yet another of his perceived enemies, Senator Richard Blumenthal.
So that's a great step for the state of California, folks, because I think Democrats are finally recognizing that we have a president who's not interested in the country as a whole so much as he's interested purely in power for himself. And that's not something that people should allow to have happen. We can take all steps to make a difference. It could be just as simple as a social media post. I prefer you make a video blog. If you want to do it on Zenny60's YouTube, please, I welcome you to do so. But we've got to stop screwing around and right the ship that is the United States so that we can construct an economy that provides jobs for everybody regardless of look or age, and the ability for those who have kids to help their kids, and also to make absolute impact guarantee that their kids get better paying jobs than they did. All those are taller orders than they were in the past, and that should concern everybody, because we have not been able to, and we haven't focused on responding to global competition. And folks, tariffs are not the answer. What are the answer? What's the answer? Subsidizing American companies, products built in the United States, and rewarding those organizations that stay put in their local communities and contributing to them. We don't have a subsidy system that encourages that, let alone a tax system that rewards that. So we need to get it together. Subscribe to Zenny62 on YouTube and bookmark ZennyReport.com and at also Zenny62blog.com. Thank you.